This past week, both Dawn Baddeley and Sue Carbloom lost their fathers. We are praying continually for Jackie Sturr, elder in this church, who's still in Colorado, getting ready to start her last round of chemotherapy and then planning to come back and be with us. But when we think of these, and you can name things in your life right now, the word storms come up. We look at our world, the widening opportunity gap for children of color, for example. This church was involved last week in a wonderful event that led by Alika Galloway from North Minneapolis, talking about the opportunity gap between white children and children of color, the storm for them. We've been hearing so much about something that has so long been a part of our society. The plague of sexual violence and abuse of girls and women in our culture is a storm. We continue to be baffled and defy that climate change exists, even as the effects of climate change are causing the least of these in our world to suffer and die. It's a storm. And at this time, we come to the nuts and bolts of the church. The budget. Utilities. Paying for our wonderful secretary, our wonderful office manager, Michelle, and that rascal who climbs in the pulpit every week. It's time that we think about stewardship. Is there some connections, is what I want to ask today, between the storms that assail us in life, whether personal or global, and the existence of the church? Our scripture, the portion of the beloved Psalm 91. You who live in the shelter of the Most High, who abide in the shadow of the Almighty, will say to God, you are my refuge and my fortress, O God, in you I trust. For God will deliver us from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. God will cover us with her wings, and under her wings we will find refuge. God's faithfulness is a shield and a protector for us. We will not fear the terror of the night, or the arrow that flies by day, or the pestilence that stalks in darkness, or the destruction that wastes at noonday. For God will command the angels concerning us to guard us in every way. On their hands we are bared up, so that we will not dash our feet against a stone. Let us pray. Holy God, we ask that you be with your servants now and your servant, that the words heard and the words spoken would be found well-pleasing in your sight. You who are our rock, our strength, and our refuge. Amen. Author and pastor Jim Kitchens shares what happened at his church once when July the 4th fell on a Sunday. He writes, in that community, a local city club sponsored an annual July the 4th kiddie parade, culminating in a family celebration in the city park right next to our church. As I entered the pulpit that Sunday morning to begin my sermon, the local university band, standing immediately across the street from the pulpit, broke into a spirited rendition of the Eric Clapton tune, Cocaine. No increase in my volume on my card had a prayer of being heard over that band music. Thank goodness most of the people didn't have a clue what the song was about, or they would have been even more offended than they already were. We muddled through the rest of the service, but I'm not sure how many ears were attuned to the voice of the Apostle Paul and how many to Eric Clapton. What is our response to that story? Well, I'd like to suggest that a response is self-recognition. Here's what I mean. We have so many commitments in our life, don't we? Our lives so busy. So many worthy organizations and groups we're a part of. And families with children and youth. Wow, the schedules they have to keep in our postmodern world. Youth sports that schedule practices and games not just on Sundays, but on Sunday mornings. So a parade on Sunday morning? Yeah, we get that. As the open, accommodating people we are, we even feel acceptance. I mean, the church can give a little and make room. Let the band play on. And if that means there is a decline in our synagogues, our mosques, our churches, well, that's just what society is now. There's just one problem. Now, I know it's what you would expect from a guy who's given the better part of his adult life to the church. You would expect me to, well, rain on the parade. Touché. Point well taken. But perhaps even so, you'd be willing to hear my reasons. For, beloved, it is not just a myopic pastor who is concerned. According to the latest social analysis, our culture and society has judged the work of synagogues, mosques, and churches, the spiritual enterprises, to be among the many electives, not really required in the curriculum of life. With the result that people are falling apart at the seams. In an important book of a few years ago, The Lonely American Drifting Apart in the 21st Century, two psychiatrists, Jacqueline Olds and Richard Swartz, made the case that when we are hurt or afraid or grieving or exhausted or despairing, that increasingly we have nowhere to turn. The authors cite a Duke University social survey, that asks the question, from time to time, most people discuss important matters with other people. Looking back over the last 6 months, who are the people with whom you have discussed matters really important? And astonishing, in a trend that is deepening, a full 25%, 25% of our population responded. They did not have a single comment. Why is this? Well, the authors list 3 reasons. First, our extreme busyness. Counterintuitively, the busier we are, the more contacts we have, the shallower are our relationships, and the more lonely we are. 2, technology. Again, there's irony here. The book disabuses us of the notion, especially for our young, that texting, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all the rest is a big positive in the social development of our young. No, they say. For all too often, the technology becomes a substitute for those old-fashioned ways of connecting that our brain requires 2 bodies to be in the same place at the same time, with all of the sensory and communicative richness that the brains need and require to be healthy and to keep us healthy. For those of us feeling a little defensive right now as I talk about social media, I get it. I use texting and Facebook too. But the point is, texting to be reminded what time church is? Good. Texting instead of church? No. Not so good. No. The third is this. Friends, we live and have lived for many years with an American trap between myth and reality. Here's the myth. The rugged American individualist who goes it alone. Can anyone say John Wayne? Or the latest action picture, the names of which I confess I do not know, but some of you will know. The rugged American individualist. I don't need help from anybody, anywhere, anyhow. Yeah. The reality, the deep need we have as a human being not to be alone. What an insidious dilemma. We live out the myth and we die inside lonely. We claim our need for others, and then we feel ashamed that we are not the rugged American individuals. The result, we construct an isolated existence in which we seek to live bravely and by ourselves. And the effects on us, friends, could not be more calamitous. Here is a statement from the book, documented by numerous studies. Positive social relationships, the deep kind, are second only to genetics in predicting longevity of life. In other words, we need each other to have healthy immune systems. You see, this morning is not your CFO, some institutional wonk, making an appeal to keep the church going as an option among many. But rather, I am your pastor using hard scientific data, and I am interested in saving our lives. Second only to genetics in the longness of life. It gives a whole new meaning to the phrase, I'm going to church to get saved. And we know this need to be in community in a deep and spiritual way. We know it deep down. A recent Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life revealed this finding regarding who it is that joins religious faith groups. Here's a quote. Most children raised completely unaffiliated with any religion. I wonder if you have a guess how that sentence ends. Those children, as an adult, join a religious group. Raised unaffiliated, as an adult, join a religious group. Why? A commentator on the study writes, non-religion misses the ethereal part of our human experience that is forever in search of something greater than ourselves, that seems to call us out of isolation and into a community of shared convictions. And it is known through art, music, literature, and ritual, which, of course, is a spiritual experience, end quote. See, friends, something like that doesn't just happen. Shared convictions, music, literature, art, ritual. Does that sound familiar? A call to service? It's this church. It's PCA. It happens not at the various organizations we belong to, no matter how worthy they are. I'm a member of some of those organizations. I'm not attacking other organizations like the Red Cross or anything. I'm just saying that for all of these things to flow together with the singular purpose and call to service doesn't happen by accident or by joining these groups. And it doesn't happen at the dock on the lake, no matter how close to God we may feel there. And I say that as one who experiences God's presence in nature in a powerful way. But it does not have this full force field that draws us together and makes us healthy and empowers our immune system. And here is a special word to parents and grandparents of children involved in sports. There is a place for sports within the whole life of a child. But, and I've gotten into trouble in every church that I've served for saying this, so I considered whether to say it again.
Say it.
And you know me, never wanting to be controversial. I decided to say it again. Sports does not touch the need that I'm speaking of here. And therefore, sports does not warrant being a top priority. I speak as a lifelong sports activist. How about those Vikings? They're really doing good this year. The Twins gave us something to hope for this last season. Has there ever been a greater basketball shooter than Steph Curry? I don't think so. I played sports all my youth. I coached youth soccer for 16 seasons. I love my kids. I taught them how to be a team. And I know you'll find this hard to believe, but I was intense. And we won a bunch of games. But I tell you with urgency, not one time in in my entire life in athletics was there a place designated and safe to talk about drugs, war and peace, sex, caring for the poor, loving the planet, depression, suicide. And you see, for the second time now in this little sermon, I mentioned the saving of our lives from the storms of life. And have you heard, dear listener, dear Presbyterian Church of the Apostles, your session has directed the Stewardship Council to put into the asking budget for the coming year funds to hire a family and children part-time staff. From the beginning, the human has searched for that something that is greater than we are, that ethereal part of us. Author and atheist Julian Barnes put it this way: I don't believe in God, but I sure miss him. So on the cave walls of the Cro-Magnon or the cathedral ceiling of Michelangelo, we tried to paint it. In the campfire songs of a spiritual retreat or a Brahms requiem, we have tried to sing it. In holy scriptures, in theological tomes, or in passion sermons, we have tried to wordsmith it. That abiding presence, that strength, that shelter from the stormy blast. A few years ago, there was a bad tornado in Norman, Oklahoma, and a family who lived there had a really nice place, a big home. There were lots and lots of rooms for different kinds of living. There was sleeping rooms and cooking rooms and watching TV rooms and computer rooms and play area rooms. All important. Like us, really. Do you see the metaphor? Do you see where I'm going? The comparison, the fitness club, the organizations we belong to, the lake house, the many places we live out our lives. All important rooms. But when the stormy blast came to Norman, there was only one room, their storm shelter, that was fit for the task, and from which, after the storm, they emerged, shaken, but holding each other and safe. There is only one room in our life that is most important, more important than all the other rooms. Presbyterian Church of the Apostles, a community like that doesn't just happen by accident. It takes intention and prioritization. Presbyterian Church of the Apostles, this room, this shelter, is at a pivotal moment in its journey. We are at an exciting time, to be sure, attracting new members and having these beautiful children around, these children to join with all of you surrogate grandparents. Don't you just love that image? We love being a grandparents' church for all of the surrogate grandchildren that will come. Gathering our visions and hopes for the future, working together, you and I, for the years that we have been given to be together, to adapt and change. I say change. Let me repeat, change. So that PCA is vibrant and vital and essential for each other and the community and the world as we go forward. What a wonderful, wonderful opportunity and time to be alive. How exciting it is to be here with you. And yet, you notice I use the word pivotal. What makes it pivotal is that there is a gap. The longtime members and activists and workers, you who have been so important in the formation of PCA, are getting older, traveling. Some of you tell me thinking of retiring from some of the most intense work in the church. And the newer members and visitors and inquirers, finding their way, balancing out their busy lives, seeking what is life-giving in life, considering how they might join in and fit in the church. Do you see there the gap, the in-betweenness time that we're in? Waiting to take off into a new version of PCA, a new chapter in the beautiful life of this place, and needing the energy and the commitment to do so. You see, pivotal? Something is needed now for the future of PCA. That something that is needed is you. Whoever you are. So please hear these challenges. To the longtime members, keep working in the church. Do not retire. See it through this wonderful story we call the PCA, of a church founded on the core belief of giving our life to the world for the sake of love. That giving goes on from cradle to grave. Longtime members, we need your wisdom and strength. And here is a word to you about attendance in worship. And I will be sending this sermon out on the e-blast, calling special attention to this portion of the sermon. From my perspective, 35 years working on this thing called church, I cannot overemphasize how important church attendance is to the spirit and attractiveness of our church. And I am telling you, visitors and guests who might be considering being a part of us are greatly influenced by what worship feels like. Has the preacher prepared? Has the choir and Jerry prepared? And Steve and the band? Have Paul and lastly, and crucial, have you shown up? What worship feels like is greatly influenced by people being in church. So I am being pushy, I realize it. And asking all of you members, when you are in town and trying to decide whether or not to go to church on that day, come. There could be visitors that very day that will be influenced by the critical mass of your energy. And a special word to you, my fellow sports enthusiasts. Hear ye, all Viking fans. When the Vikings play at noon, and you do not want to miss the game on television, well, you all know how up-to-date I am on all things technical and electronic. I have discovered a marvelous invention. They have this gadget, I don't even know what the name of it is, but it's a recording device. Did you know that you can record a football game and watch it later? Who knew? I mean, so I thought I wanted to share that with you, Viking fans. To set your device, record the game, and come to church. Now, to newer members and inquirers, you are invited with all of our hearts and all of our spirits to come be with us, to jump in, to find ways to get involved, to bring your new ideas and fresh energy and loud children in worship to our life together. And to both longer time members and newer, in the bulletin today there is a pledge card, there is a letter from Chris Padley, chair of the Stewardship Council, and there is a letter from me asking you to generously support with your financial contributions the life and work of this place. All of us are needed. You'll hear from Chris in a little bit. I close with this. We all of us need this place. It is a shelter from the storms. A colleague sent this to me. A 45-year-old woman in the church, Elizabeth, made an appointment to come talk with the pastor. Elizabeth had cancer. She had finished chemo. Her last hope was surgery, which she would have in 2 days. The pastor thought Elizabeth probably wanted to pray before the surgery, or maybe she wanted to talk about why was this happening to her. She had every right to ask that question. She came, a bright blue scarf over her head, and sat down in the pastor's office. They exchanged pleasantries, and then Elizabeth spoke of the chemo and of the coming surgery. And then she said something the pastor was not prepared for. She said, "You know, Pastor, I wouldn't trade my life for anything." The pastor blinked back a tear and then asked, "Why do you say that, Elizabeth?" And she said, all of the love and support I have received from the church. Why, God has never been so real to me. Friends, PCA is my shelter. Don't you want shelter?